We are now in week 14, and it literally just dawned on me. I was like, oh, we're just about done. Like, really. I didn't even mention that in my announcement for my other class. So, yeah. Wow, we covered a lot, right? And so, I made it back into Portland a few days ago, or 2 days ago. I can't even keep track of time right now. I drove back up with my friend, or hitched a ride from him, traded driving. It was the worst Thursday night. We left about 8 o'clock and got to Portland about 2 p.m. the next day. I had maybe about a total of 2 hours sleep. It was the most storming, windy, terrible drive of my life. Ugh, I'm just glad that I've survived. So, and I'm sorry, I used my vacation time to be back in the valley. I barely saw any of my friends. I was wanting to see you guys in person. It didn't happen, but mothers first. Mothers first, that's what it was. Mothers first. So, so it goes, and I hope all of you are doing well or better. I know that some of my students have been sick or having so many other issues as well. It's just one of those things, right? And I just want to say something briefly before I move on to talk a little bit about current events. And just to say, because Middle East is my specialty, what's happening in Syria is grotesque. It's been grotesque for a long time. But I'm very cynical and disturbed by our politicians. So I'll be fair and balanced, and I'm just going to bash Democrats and Republicans both, and I hope that you can just accept that. And also let me say that I love America. So can that be like a nice big, like a nice arc of balance, something like that? That essentially Syria has been the stomping ground of world superpowers to fight for what they perceive to be in their interests, and that includes the United States. And here's what I mean. So we have this terrible dictator, Assad, that is complex. He's of minority Islamic religion. He's protected Christian rights as a minority and other groups, but at the same time he exploited, in particular, the Sunni population felt really resentful of him. There was a protest against him that many argue started off nonviolent. Some people contest that or not, but the bottom line is it turned into a bloody civil war. Saudi Arabia and other nations started pouring into Syria to help fight on the side of a Sunni rebellion against him, and the minority religion Alawite that Assad is actually in cahoots politically with Shiite populations such as Iran. But then Iran's involved. Hezbollah from Lebanon gets involved because they're Shiites coming in. Saudi Arabia, like I said, is heavily invested on one side. And the United States under Obama, starting, but I don't think it would have been much different under any other president, by the way, starts funding the rebels that are also being funded by Saudi Arabia, which are very much like Al-Qaeda and ISIS type of ideologies. And in fact, one could argue that the invasion of Iraq by Bush and the civil war of Syria is in fact really what causes the rise of ISIS, which is another topic I will not go into right now. But I feel very confident not just from me, but that's an argument that can be strongly made. Okay, so then you have Russia wanting to side with Assad. The Russians have had a long-standing alliance with also Assad. And Turkey has their own sets of interests over the Kurds. Israel has wanted to get rid of Assad because the weapons that go to Hezbollah and Hamas that have been a bother to Israel those missiles come from Iran into Syria and to those groups. So all these powers coming in with some set of interests, and the Syrian people trapped into this mess. And then a massive refugee crisis, and not many nations don't want to have all these refugees, so it's a terrible thing. So now we have a government that says, oh, I'm horrified by seeing dead babies in Syria now, all of a sudden, and yet we don't want to take any Syrian refugees. So, what's going on? Saudi Arabia, talks about, gets involved, and they don't want to take in refugees. So this whole thing is just a nightmare for the Syrians. And then to top it off, our hypocrisy, and I'm going to be really blunt. If you research Yemen right now, Yemen, since Obama, mainly under Obama, but now also with Trump as well, Saudi Arabia has been carpet bombing Yemen because of a civil war there that has Iran also taking place, like aiding one side and Saudi Arabia the other. We have been one of the most avid supporters of helping Saudi Arabia basically destroy Yemen. And it's just about as bad, in some cases worse, than what's happening in Syria. And so, in a sense, we are like playing the same role as Putin is in Syria. We're doing the same thing in Yemen. And so, I'm very cynical about all these crocodile tears of politicians. We have a world full of interests, and civilians get caught in between. And human rights are discussed by either group, either party, European or American or anybody else, when it's convenient to try to promote some other agenda, which, you know, we all try to figure out. So that's my little cynical thought about the current thing there. Okay, moving on, we're going into the topic of the Reformation. And it's kind of, I think it's really appropriate for us to study, in the sense to think about how the Reformation period is kind of what we're seeing even in the Islamic world right now, which is we're seeing Sunnis and Shiites have a terrible bloodbath against each other, and all these kind of wars that look to us to be so horrifying. Well, Europeans were doing that to each other. Not just Catholics, it was basically all of our Christian religions that we're a part of, that are mainstream American religion in Europe, were slaughtering each other quite heavily during this time period. It's a dark spot on the history of the West and our and Christianity. But at the same time, it's not all negative, like all things, and that's what you get a chance to kind of examine and think about. Okay, so this is not new history. It just may be something more new to you, and you may have also studied this history under the kind of a more politicized version, which is, if you grow up Protestant, you grow up hearing all the terrible things that Catholics did, but you ignore what Protestants did in this time period. So this is kind of like being fair and balanced again on the whole topic. And again, this is not even to talk down one particular group again or promote. It's just this is the reality. And so hopefully, though, we walk away with this information feeling empowered to be better people. This is how I always look at history, which is that when we look at the world and how crazy it is, the more we know and understand, the more empowered we are to be the kind of person that we want to be, and that we don't support things that are really against our values when we think that they're for our values. I also then want to just say, I'll end, that there's this documentary I have at the end on the creation of the King James Bible, which is a great, positive, interesting documentary to end on. It's, even if you are not religious, you just have to really appreciate the importance of the text for the English world, the Western world, the King James Bible. And it's a very fascinating documentary. So I guess that's all I have to say. I hope you're all having a good, we've had a good weekend. We're going into the new week, and we will be in touch. Just hit me up if you need to.